It's a beautiful day for some football.
Hello and welcome to Sports Tavern Talk. I'm your host, Elijah Loyola. Just a couple short days after the NFL draft, we are going to dive in for my grade of every team's draft class. Now, a lot of these teams have shown great grades and some great picks, but for a couple of these teams, they didn't have that great of drafts and made some questionable choices. In any case then, we are starting off with the NFC South Division, and today we will go with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who in my opinion earned the highest draft grade with an A-. So let's take a look at all the picks that Tampa Bay has selected based on the draft. Looking at Tampa Bay's draft class, they already got a great head start by selecting edge Ruben Bain Jr. with the 15th overall pick, who somehow fell out of the top 10 and down this far, giving the Buccaneers a surefire edge who can really bring something to the team. And as for the rest of the class, Tampa Bay earned a C- on Josiah Trotter. Now, I know Josiah Trotter is a really good linebacker, and I have no doubt in my mind. It was just a reach pick in that case, but they should have traded back for my opinion. But anyways then, the Buccaneers found a strong downhill linebacker who will blitz and tackle for their defense. And they also traded back in the third round, earning themselves an extra 5th round pick, and still selected wide receiver Ted Hurst, who will bring a lot of size and strength for the wide receiver core. Then as for day 3 for the final 4 selections, they decided to go with Keontae Scott, the defensive back out of Miami, earning themselves an A+ draft grade for this selection. Then in the 5th round, they found an athletic defensive tackle in DeMonte Capehart, a strong guard in Billy Saraf, and then finally trading up in the 6th round to select tight end Bauer Sharp. All in all, this was a great draft for the Buccaneers as they got a position for everything they needed. Tampa Bay felt very solid about their draft class, especially with the players that they found at their selections. Though for me, the trade up for Bauer Sharp in the 6th round felt a little bit odd. If they waited all the way to 195, they surely could have gone Bauer Sharp at that point in my opinion and earned themselves another player for their class. But they felt very strongly that he would have been gone before then. In any case, Tampa Bay is looking forward to revamping their defensive core and bring their offense back to life. In any case then, let's talk about some of these picks that I really like for this roster. I can't stop pointing out the fact that Tampa Bay has no idea what kind of player they just drafted with the 15th overall pick. Ruben Bain Jr. is a pure defensive edge rusher that has a unique combination of twitch, density, and positional versatility, in which he is equally effective in the dirt or standing up as an outside linebacker. He definitely has a different frequency than the college competition, showing that he can process protection concepts and adjust attack angles like an NFL veteran. Ruben Bain will definitely become a masterpiece that will help Todd Bowles bring this edge group back to life and hopefully be the missing piece of what they really need as a pure defensive whole. Not to mention, they also landed his teammate in cornerback Keontae Scott in the 4th round with the 116th selection. Honestly, he should have gone much earlier between the 2nd or even the 3rd round, but somehow, someway, Tampa Bay found a very versatile player who could play on the outside, in the slot, and his most impactful position being the nickel defender. Being then, he's a very reliable tackler, he is passionate in the run defense, and has huge playmaking ability. With 3 defensive backs gone that also included Christian Eason and Jamel Dean, bringing in Keontae Scott would definitely help in the nickel spot for Tampa Bay's defense, and Todd Bowles would certainly love to have a blitzing corner like him for his defense. The one selection I did not like for Tampa Bay in this draft class was for them trading up into the 6th round and selecting Bauer Sharp. From what I hear, Bauer Sharp is a young tight end who stands 6'5" for a tall prospect who acts like a Swiss Army knife back in his time at LSU. In any case then, I truly believe at that spot, they could have waited or traded up in that spot and selected Jack Andrews out of Texas instead of Sharp. But in any case then, Tampa Bay likes what they saw in Sharp instead of Andrews, and we'll see how all these players will perform in the training camp. But in any case then, let's move to the next team in the division who earned the second highest grade of an A-, that of which being the Carolina Panthers. For Carolina's draft class, they already had a good start by selecting Monroe Freeling with the 19th overall pick, but in the day 2 and day 3 is where they got the real work done. In the second round, they were able to select Lee Hunter with the 49th overall pick, which earns them an A+ an A grade in my opinion. And then so finding Chris Brazzell somehow all the way into the third round earns them an A+ draft pick. This was a very smart selection, upgrading Carolina's wide receiver room for quarterback Bryce Young. Then in day 3, they made some good decisions here, finding Will Lee III in the 4th round to help their secondary, getting another offensive lineman in Sam Hecht, who was considered one of the best linemen in the draft, and then a smart safety from Penn State in Zachy Wheatley, who would definitely help the secondary. And then finally, with their last pick in the 7th round, they drafted a linebacker in Jackson Kuwach out of Miami, Ohio. For the Panthers, they certainly did more than enough in this draft class along with their free agency to put themselves as a contender for the division to repeat as division champions and contend with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. More than likely the case, both New Orleans and Atlanta still have questions, but there's no doubt in my mind that any one of these teams can win the division. But for now, let's talk about Chris Brazzell for a minute. This is a really good selection of a wide receiver that Carolina would definitely love to use in their offense. While Ted McMillan was definitely the number one option and Jalen Coker did step up, they needed a little more firepower for that offense. And here with the selection of Brazzell definitely makes the difference. Chris Brazzell should have been gone in the 2nd round and not into the 3rd. But yet somehow he fell all the way down to number 83 in the draft class, right into the lap of the Panthers. Dave Canales would definitely like to use a receiver like him. With his size of being a 6'4 receiver and as one of the longest and most physically imposing receivers, he adds a freakish length and movement skills along with a solid release package and is a high effort blocker that would surely make an impact for the Carolina offense. It's no wonder to say that Bryce Young needs to develop even further after his good year that he had from the last season. And right now, Chris Brazzell might be the piece that will help him take that step even further. The one selection for Carolina that I was not that too pleased with was the 7th round selection of linebacker Jackson Kuwach. Now, I'm not going to downplay him being a bad player, because he was certainly within Carolina's looks and reach that they liked as a prospect, but there were certainly other higher profile linebackers that they could have taken for their defense, such as Deontay Lawson out of Alabama, Torian York from Texas A&M, and Lander Burton out of Utah. And mind you, these were the selections during the draft, not afterwards. But there's still more hope that Carolina can find more players in the undrafted free agent selections for their defense. But all in all, Carolina did a solid job earning themselves some high profile players on both sides of the ball that would help them contend for the division. And then now let's move on to the 3rd place team, the New Orleans Saints, who in my opinion did a lot of good work in helping their own offense out, but didn't do enough on the defense, resulting in a B+ draft grade. The Saints started off in the right direction with the pick of Jordan Tyson, number 8 overall, earning them a B+. But then the 2nd round and further on, they did pretty good onwards. They found Christian Miller with the 42nd pick in round 2 to help the defensive tackle group, and then went for tight end Oscar Dell, who in my opinion was quite a reach for this selection, which earns them a C+. However, with the back-to-back 4th round selections of offensive guard Jeremiah Wright and wide receiver Bryce Lance, both of these picks earned themselves an A, finding lots of great value for them to help them on the offense. And as for the final 3 picks, they got a nice safety in Lorenzo Styles Jr., who is an athletic prospect that could surely help out their defense, and selected another wide receiver in Barian Brown, who also plays on special teams, and then selected cornerback TJ Hall out of Iowa for their final pick, rounding up their draft class. It seems from the direction of what Kellen Moore wants to do is that they want to help develop Tyler Shough even more into a better quarterback for their team. Hence the selection of 3 wide receivers, a tight end, and an offensive guard for their offense. Meanwhile, they fill in the spots of a defensive tackle, a safety, and a corner for their defense. The Saints defense was better than they did in the last season for this year. However, they lost more than they gained, which resulted why I believe they should have focused a little more on more defensive help. In any case then, let me talk about the 2 best selections for the Saints with Bryce Lance and Jeremiah Wright. The right selection, pun intended, is the right pick for the Saints in this 4th round, as it helps them give a big, bodied, and powerful guard that would surely help open the running lanes and give Tyler Shough better protection. For his wide body frame, because he's a massive 6'5", 300-pound player who can definitely square up among the defensive tackles and show physical presence that can deliver body blows for a finisher. And he's also a reliable guard, showing his durability and reliability, and also have experience on playing on both sides of the ball, meaning both the offense and defense, and playing both left and right guard as well, giving the Saints a very versatile option to use for their offense. The same can be said for wide receiver Bryce Lance for the offense. The Saints understood that even with Chris Olave as the wide receiver 1 and the selection of Jordan Tyson in round 1, both receivers show injury concerns, and they need to somehow find the way to keep the receiver core healthy with better options. Hence why the Lance selection really makes sense. As a 6'3" receiver coming out of North Dakota, he shows excellent long speed and vertical ability, good ball tracking skills, impressive contested catch ability, clean simple releases, and a technically sound perimeter blocker. He also shows reliable hands with only 5 career drops. Lance can definitely become the difference maker for Tyler Shough as another option to keep in the case that Olave and Tyson go down. There are 2 things wrong in my opinion with the draft class from the Saints. The first one being the tight end selection in the 3rd round. While Oscar Delp is a great selection in this draft class, he didn't do much in the University of Georgia, but shows a lot of great traits and physical development. But in my case then, there were surely better tight ends in this draft class that the Saints could have gotten in Joe Royer and Michael Trigg, who were available at the spot. In any case then, the other problem was not drafting a linebacker. Surely a linebacker should have been in their sights in this draft class, because even though they brought in Caden Ellis and have Pete Warner for the time being, they did lose a longtime player in Demario Davis, who returned to the New York Jets. Finding a linebacker at that spot should have been a good option in the case then, because they did not need to draft the wide receiver in the 6th round in Barry and Brown. At that point, it should have been a linebacker to help their defense even more. In any case, the Saints will be going forward in developing Shough and trying to keep the defense performance as it was last year. But now let's move on to the final team with the Atlanta Falcons, who earned the lowest grade but yet a still good grade with a B. The Falcons started off with 2 good selections in day 2, having selected Avion Terrell out of Clemson and wide receiver Zachariah Branch from Georgia, earning him a B and a B+ grade. Avion is the younger brother of AJ Terrell, which gives them a brotherhood who can work together to bring Atlanta's secondary back together, and Branch becomes another nice option for the quarterback who will play and throw to on the offense, because we don't know who it might be either between Michael Penix or Tua. And in day 3, they made a smart selection with the linebacker in Kendon Daniels, but they could have waited for that in my opinion a little later, hence why I gave them a C. But I do like the selections in the 6th round of defensive tackle Ontario Thompson and linebacker Hale Perkins, which earns them a B. And then finally, an offensive tackle in Ethan Oniwa out of Ohio State earns them a C, bringing that all together as a B grade. For me, this was a very interesting draft class because I had no idea what the Falcons were going, but in the case then, they found some great selections for their roster. And the first 2 were definitely the best ones, so let's start off by talking about Avion Terrell and then Zachariah Branch. It was really good to see during the draft the happiness between AJ and Avion, who will now play together on the Atlanta Falcons. Speaking of which, this guy was supposed to be a 1st round talent, and yet he wasn't. And somehow Atlanta getting him really helps them out on the defense, because Terrell provides them one of the best zone coverage eyes among the nation, extremely loose agilities with 0 stiffness, elite ball skills with a signature peanut punch, and track verified speed. He's also willing to play physical and has a versatile ability to play boundary, nickel, or outside zone. And for me, this would really help Atlanta out in their secondary, as they did struggle towards the end of it, but had their moments in wins against Buffalo and the Rams from last year. The same can be said of Zachariah Branch too, because I understand how this guy also fell down to the 3rd round as well. This was a B+ selection in my opinion for the Atlanta Falcons. With the departure of Darnell Mooney and offensive coordinator Zach Robinson, the new offense needs to find a way to keep Drake London on the field and find some more help. For me, Branch is definitely that great option for the Falcons. At that point then, Zachariah Branch can bring elite twitchiness and change the direction to create separation. He creates big plays after the catches with acceleration, vision, and elusiveness, and can work either in the slot or with slants, routes, and shallow crosses. He's also a big-time return specialist that can really help Atlanta's special teams out as well. I think overall the only issues I have for Atlanta's draft class was the final selection for the offensive tackle, which I think was a pretty good situation considering that their starting tackle retired suddenly in the offseason, and they did bring in Jawan Taylor for it. Which I don't hate them for the offensive tackle selection, but all in all, I think Atlanta really could have traded back to earn themselves some more draft capital, especially considering how many of the good players fell into the later rounds, which would have given Atlanta more high quality picks. In any case then, getting a B is pretty good, but it will all rest in the hinges of the shoulders of which quarterback will start, whether that be Michael Penix or Tua in this season and for the future. But anyways, that's all the time for today. Thank you so much for watching Sports Tavern Talk. Please make sure to leave a like and comment your thoughts on the video, and make sure to follow me on YouTube, Instagram, and on X. And as always, I will see you next time.